Good evening, everyone. Happy February, everybody. Welcome to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk about all things in the week that are geek. Of course, I'm your host, Adam Mickelson, a.k.a. Drek. I hope everybody has had a good week. Mine has been a busy one. I've been working on reviews for 2 games at the same time. Don't ask. I really tried to get this done as quickly as I could, and then I found out one of those reviews was going to go a little longer than I thought. And so I decided to put in another one so I could expediently get something out. And then on top of that, I just got a movie review done today. So it's been a busy week. And now that I've been in the theater full of kids, I probably am going to get some kind of flu. That's going to be even more awesome. But of course, I hope you guys have all had a great week. I, of course, am being joined by my usual panel of fellow YouTubers, fellow geeks, and occasionally really weird people sometimes. But it's okay. It's a good kind of weird. First of all, I'm going to start off with the sick ward at this point. The Shadow Blazer himself. Apparently the hipster is back.
The hipster is back.
Is he back? Is he in black?
I'm not in black. I'm in red.
So yeah, you've not had a good week this week.
No, I worked most of the week. Then I got sick. Then I got pretty. I don't want to say pretty sick. I got mildly sick on pretty much by Thursday. I was ready to throw in the towel and say, no, I need the weekend off here.
Yeah, no, that makes a whole lot of sense. Especially, I was actually kind of wondering if we were even going to get you tonight because,
I was wondering that too. My voice was gone Thursday. It was I worked, and that was the thing because I worked on Thursday. So on top of my already declining throat and losing my voice, I was pretty much done speaking for the next day.
Yeah, all I remember is I got a text from you just going, "Yep, we're not recording today. My voice is shot."
Yep, pretty much. But it came back today, and just in time for this. And well, just before going on this podcast, I got to have a little bit of random fun with a couple of fellow YouTube anime people guys here. I don't know what I'm saying. People guys.
YouTube anime people guys. That's the episode title right there.
Awesome.
All right.
I got to have a fun little just chillax podcast for about an hour, and yeah, now I'm here and I'm back.
Well, tonight we're gonna have a little bit more of that because again, this is for people who want the serious business news. We're still in February, people. There isn't a whole lot happening, but we're still gonna have some fun. Of course, I'm also being joined by Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost, a.k.a. Studio Phantasma of From the Shelf, Romney's Reviews, and returning, basically, from a month-long hiatus, but with a couple of conditions. Romney, how has your week been?
Well, my week's been somewhat, well, I wouldn't say productive, because I didn't really do the most productive things until yesterday, which was a job interview with a news station. I'm not going to say which one, but seemed pretty promising. And so, yeah, as for today, it's just been running the usual errands and dealing with my 5-year-old niece.
Ah.
Well, I did see a movie on Friday, but the review for that should be up, well, sometime within the next couple of days.
Do you want to sneak peek it, or do people have to wait to see what it is?
Well, let's just say the Coen brothers were having a little too much fun, more than they probably should have.
That's never a good lead-in.
Concerned we're seeing that very movie Monday.
Oh boy!
Hey, is it that movie? Okay.
Yep.
I didn't know it was the Coen brothers, but I was actually gonna say, like, we actually had a story put up about the Coen brothers, and the image that they got was not pleasant because it really looks like one of those people, one of the Coen brothers is just, I need to go poop. Can you get this camera out of my face? Okay, I'm good. This is one of those things. This is one of those nice people. It really is. I'm kind of out of it too.
Trying to resist the urge to follow up on that in regards to the film, but again, don't want to lay out the cards too early.
Oh, that already worries me. And yet we're seeing it. Yeah, it's Hail Caesar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we're seeing it on Monday. So we'll see. We'll see if it works out. So let's go ahead and get down to business here, people.
Did they beat the Huns?
Indeed. Did they send us daughters when you asked for sons? We are the saddest bunch we've ever met. But you can bet before we're through, Mr. I'll or will make a man out of us.
Out of you? Out of
Indeed.
him? Her? I don't know.
I'm not Donny Osmond, people. Don't ask me to sing that.
I could try the Cantonese version because that's Jackie Chan, but, well, Cantonese, Mandarin, those are really hard languages.
Yeah.
Here's some Disney trivia for tonight. Jackie Chan was the singing voice for Shang.
Yes.
In Chinese dub.
So let's go ahead and get into the stories this week, and we actually have a special story. So I usually don't include last-minute entries, but this was a listener request, and a listener request specifically for the Shadow Blazer. People remember the last-minute request that I did, and that was talking about a McDonald's menu. That didn't work out so well. Well, it did, but it was absolutely silly. This one, however, is specifically targeted towards the Shadow Blazer himself, and I'll admit, when I saw it, I got a little bit of a giggle. So I'm just going to go... They haven't seen it yet, so I'm going to go ahead and link it onto the chat. I literally got a message saying, the Shadow Blazer has to see this!
Oh my god.
So, the first story that we have tonight, and it's not tech, but we're going to go into it. There is an official X-Files coloring book. Yes, that's right, YouTube. You heard me right. An official X-Files coloring book. And so the basic information that we have here is that it is being done by the I actually don't think we have the company here for it.
Yeah, the store is called I Am 8-Bit, is the website.
Yeah. And they are releasing a $12 coloring book featuring 16 original illustrations, puzzles, and games. If you've ever wanted to shade in the smoking man, now's your chance. I love the fact that even IGN, this is an IGN story, people, they're doing the advertising for it. So you can now officially find the official X-Files coloring book, and it's being released this week. Now, what makes this even better, Fox approved of this. Fox approved of this, so now they're able to sell it online. And I guess apparently starting February 4th. Mm-hmm. See if. And there's more than the prints, and there's various prints that are being done, and a lot of them range in between or in prices from $20 up and up. So some of the examples that we actually have here, give me a second, and I'll put this on screen share because these are just gold as far as I'm concerned. First of all, we have the Scully. Scully.
Yeah, for the record, that second part isn't actually the image. You have to look. You have to scroll up a little.
Oh, is it not? Okay.
Yeah, because the second one we're seeing isn't actually the one.
There we go.
Yeah, that's the actual coloring book.
Yeah, that's the cover for the coloring book, people. And then we also have an autopsy, and it's some words. Please label what's here: brain, leg, neck. And what makes this even better is this should be totally for X-Files fans. It's being made for kids. So
are we sure about that? There are adult coloring books.
Yeah, but a lot of the information that I was able to find on this, because I didn't just ended this article, it's being made for a family audience. So that's why in some cases it has this alien autopsy thing. We also have thank you for smoking, or thank you for not smoking. There you go.
The smoking man.
Let's see. Help him design a more fashionable print. Or oh my gosh, Mulder's ties are so boring. Help him design a new one. We have a field report, which is a word search. We don't care about your stinking advertisement. We do, indeed.
Truly, the most frightening thing to come out of the X-Files.
Indeed, and that's pretty much it. But
yeah, that's the official preview we're getting of it. Because in order to see more, we have to fork out the $20.
And again, I have to say, Scully! Scully! There you go. So, okay. Shadow Blazer, let's go ahead and start with you. This is where they wanted your opinion. Your thoughts on the X-Files official coloring book. And if you buy it for my daughter, we might have some words.
Well, I guess I should cancel my pre-order then.
Well, darn it. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Nobody will get that joke unless they've watched our X-Files LP. You know that.
That's why I did it. So, yeah, your thoughts are you like it, obviously.
It's clever. I gotta give them that. It's a coloring book for the X-Files. What's not to love? You can, if you want to make the Smoking Man black or gray or purple, or if you want to make Mulder yellow like in The Simpsons, then there's your chance.
Yep. Romney, your thoughts on the X-Files coloring book?
Well, it probably would have worked better if they, released this back in the 90s. Because, I mean, this is better late than never for the 6-episode miniseries, but I'll be honest, not really a big fan. I've only been watching the new series in passing because it's right ahead of Lucifer, so...
Sure. I like it. I like the idea of it, especially if you're going to advertise it towards kids. It's like, hey, everybody, it's Mulder and Scully. That's great, Daddy. Who's Mulder and Scully?
Or better yet, it's like, hey, son, you know that show that we watch that keeps giving you nightmares? This should make it look less threatening.
Hey, look, you can autopsy the alien. What's autopsy mean, Daddy? You know that stuff happened. You know those discussions are going to happen, and it's going to be hilarious. But, yeah, so you guys can feel free to get this. I guess as of 2 days ago, you can get the official X-Files coloring book. And after you buy it and you color through all of the lines, you can then tell us whether or not the truth is out there.
And if it's in nice, bright pastels.
Indeed. So, let's go ahead.
Was that bubble wrap?
I have no idea.
I just heard some loud popping, and I'm like, it sounds like you got bubble wrap.
Oh, no, that was me putting batteries on my table. That's probably what it was.
Okay.
Gotcha. So let's go ahead and get into our first official story of the evening.
Speaking of aliens arriving in America.
Thank you. So we're going to start things off with our Nintendo talk. And our Nintendo talk is something that's been asked for like 10 years at least at this point. There is a possibility. It's still remote, people. I did my homework. Because, it was suggested. I did my homework. This is still very much in theory territory. It's not confirmed by Nintendo. It's not confirmed by anybody. And that is that Mother 3, in honor of its 10th anniversary, or is it the 10th anniversary of the Mother series? I'm guessing it's the 10th anniversary of Mother 3. Mother 3... supposedly will be coming to the Wii U's Virtual Console. Okay. I'm going to let that sink in for people because this is something I've heard about myself for a long time. I know one of the things that people have requested ever since I brought up that I wanted to try Earthbound was you ought to try the fan translation for Mother 3. And I didn't want to do that, mainly because Mother 1 never came out here until recently.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, and I just kind of agreed with everybody. If Mother 3 was going to come out, it would have come out by now. And so now they're talking about a possible English release. Anonymous sources suggest Mother 3 will come to the Wii U's Virtual Console in the West in celebration of the game's 10th anniversary. So technically, this is already out for the Virtual Console in Japan, but we don't have one. And the first thing, obviously, that any reporter worth their salt will do is go and ask Nintendo. And Nintendo refuses to comment. That's why, in a lot of cases, it's not confirmed by any stretch. It could be that they are going to do this, but they're waiting until I don't know, a Nintendo Direct to announce it. I'm still skeptical, but the fact that a lot of Mother fans are in an uproar because, oh my gosh, they're going to get their beloved game and a Nintendo translation is making them very excited. I don't know where I'm at with this. I still am kind of on the fence on whether or not this is even going to happen. Romney, your thoughts?
Well, I'm pretty skeptical. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, but they released Mother 1, so we could get Mother 3. The thing is, with Mother 1, they already had an English version ready to go, but they shelved it because the Super Nintendo was on the way. And so that one was just more of a fluke because they already had an in-house translation and updated version of Mother 1. With Mother 3, unless they decide to take the fan group's offer of receiving the translation files, they'd have to basically translate it from scratch. And, well, translating an RPG and localizing it for a U.S. audience is not an easy thing, especially when you consider the amounts of content changes they would have to make, as well as the potential for lawsuits in regarding to the music. That's why we didn't get Earthbound on the Virtual Console for such a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm also pretty skeptical. I mean, I'd be excited if Nintendo did go through with it, but until we hear from the Big N itself, this is probably just going to stay that as a rumor. Because I know people were kind of theorizing they were going to do this back when they announced the release of Mother 1 on the Virtual Console. That they were going to try to basically release Mother 3.
Yeah, that was that was the first counter that a lot of fans came up with. Mother 1's coming, Mother 3, and Nintendo went silent. So that's one of those things, and I actually didn't remember that it had a preloaded English translation for Mother 1. But Mother 3, like, a lot of people are also making the assumption that Nintendo already has this fan translation file. To my knowledge, the group has not given it, they've offered it.
Yeah, they've offered it. Nintendo has not taken them up on any offer.
Yeah, so it's not like this thing is ready to go.
Yeah, and if I were in Nintendo's shoes, I can see a reluctance to take the fan-translated files because that could open them up for a lot of potential lawsuits. I don't know if there's a specific union issue, but it would make it a nightmare for taxes in regards to making sure the translation actually worked. Not to mention, they were how they translated a game may not be compatible with how they translate things in-house. There's a lot of factors to consider, and so unless they've been working on this translation in secret for a long while, which, then again, we wouldn't put it past Nintendo, then it's highly unlikely that they'd be releasing it so soon.
No, I actually think, like, nothing against the fan translation. Good on you that you actually did that, but if I were to take a wild guess, just not even to save their butts legally, it just would be a procedure that Nintendo would go through. They'd want to translate it themselves. They'd want to do that localization, and so I really don't see them, great, good on you that the fan group that did the translation is willing to hand over the files. I still don't see Nintendo accepting them. I still see them doing the work from scratch. Because, in essence, nothing against the fan translation, but it may not be the way that they want to translate it over. There may be story elements that they want to rework so that it makes more sense. I don't know how much that is going to play a factor, but I believe it would be. Alex, your thoughts on Mother 3 coming to U.S. shores?
Well, it's a little hard for me to comment, having never touched anything Earthbound related outside of Super Smash Brothers. Certainly, I can tell there's the passionate and vocal fan base that really wants it to come, and well, I can sympathize with that. I can see eye to eye with that. I do. Unfortunately, I kind of have to be a little skeptical because it does seem like this is the kind of thing that crops up every so often. There's these false flags that go up whenever something kind of remotely happens, and well, just being released for Virtual Console in Japan doesn't really convince me otherwise. Doesn't really, it's not like when a patent is filed or a copyright or a trademark is applied for that indicates that something's really going up. It's just being released again over in another country.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, I'm not trying to tell the Earthbound fans you are you're dorks for even trying to want this. If you want this to happen, that's great, because that's how they're going to bring it here. But at the same time, one of the things that I actually, and I'm not knocking that, if they bring it over here, great. I would love to be able to play the Mother series. I don't know how many times it's been recommended to me, but if it was going to come here, it would have come here already. That's my main problem with this. If it was going to get localized, if it was going to get translated, whatever words you want to use for it, it would have done so when this thing came out on the Game Boy Advance. Like, it wouldn't wait till the Wii U's Virtual Console to do it. And that's like my biggest hang-up on the whole matter, is that would have happened, and, well, it hasn't happened, people. That's why I'm a little skeptical on the matter. But hey, you know what? If they want to prove me wrong in a Nintendo Direct, good on them. I'd have no problem with that. I think that'd be a great idea. Prove a lot of people wrong, but they have to do it first.
Mm-hmm.
So, pretty much, I think that's our thoughts on Mother 3.
What has held it up? Just has the Earthbound series not done very well overseas?
That's kind of been the issue, is that they didn't release Mother 1 because, although they had a translation ready to go, the Super Nintendo was about to be released, and so they figured, okay, well, if we release this NES game after the Super Nintendo, nobody's going to buy it because everybody's focused on the new system, so they basically funneled all the localization efforts to Mother 2, which came out here as Earthbound. Problem is, it didn't do well when it was initially released. It's very much the equivalent of a cult classic, where it didn't do well upon initial release, but then the people who did play it really enjoyed it. And a lot of the reason why it didn't do so well was because the marketing team did a very crappy job of trying to market Earthbound.
They did. I mean, I still remember, I remember it being a very unique box, because it was a huge box. Like, you could have sworn a Super Nintendo came with it. But it came with, like, a bunch of Mother 2-esque stuff, including, I believe, like, a full-on strategy guide for Earthbound that was using, like, a scratch and sniff kind of deal. I've seen it before. It's Far From Subtle did it for their Earthbound playthrough. They dug that strategy guide out. And even then, I mean, when Earthbound got moved over to the Virtual Console, they actually created the strategy guide within the game. So you could actually go and look at it and see all the pages. But that's the thing. It didn't do very well, and it's the epitome of a cult classic. I mean, I still remember, like, my brother played it and was totally confused by it, and therefore doesn't like it. Even to this day, does not like the Mother series.
Yeah, and the other reason that most people still know about it today was because of Super Smash Brothers and the fact that the Mother series was really popular in Japan, so they included the character Ness from Mother 2, which was the most recent game in most people's memory, and then they also followed up by adding Lucas and Brawl. And so in Japan it did really well, but here stateside, due to some really poor marketing decisions on Nintendo of America's part, it did not do that well. And it wasn't until the release of Super Smash Brothers and its various iterations that people even knew about the franchise, even knew who Ness was, which then led to the major demand for the release on Virtual Console. And the reason we didn't get it until it was on the Wii U was because there was some pending legal action regarding the music in Earthbound because of how it sounded similar to a lot of American music, which was the intention. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look up the hippie battle theme, you'll notice that it sounds eerily similar to Johnny B. Good.
Yes.
So that was another thing Nintendo was trying to deal with, because it was very much a case of they didn't want to get sued by the music company, so they tried going to the original people who made the game and say, oh, can you rework this game and replace all the music? But the people who worked on the game, including Shigesato Itoi, who is the creator of the Mother series, they all said, no, we're not going to go back in and replace all the music. That would basically mean us having to make the game from scratch. And so it was a huge back and forth until they finally managed a way to negotiate with the record industry so that way they couldn't get sued, and thus we got it on Wii U, because it was a ploy for them to try to get more people to buy the Wii U, because this was back when it wasn't doing that well. And then we got Mother 1 as part of the 20th anniversary of the franchise, because they already had a translation in-house.
But I'm also glad that you brought up Lucas, because one of the other major reasons that people are bringing up that this might be a legit thing is, and I don't know how you string them together, but the Lucas Amiibo is apparently coming out really soon. And so a lot of people have wondered, well, is there going to be some extra functionality in that amiibo for Mother 3. Guys, it's really hard to make that jump until Nintendo actually says. I don't want to be the guy that dashes your hopes, but that's a stretch.
Yeah, especially when you consider that the Lucas amiibo came out last month. If they had something like that planned, we all would have heard about it by now because somebody would have bought the amiibo, touched it to the sensor, and they would have discovered that because it's a Smash Bros. Amiibo.
Not only that, but I mean, I've already seen videos of people doing this. People will take apart the amiibos and look at the tech. And if there was additional tech, dude, somebody took that apart inside and would have put it up on a video, kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and you wouldn't even need to do it as additional tech. Basically, if there was something, how they would have done it is that they would have done to the Lucas amiibo what they did with the Link amiibo, where if you put a Link amiibo on a copy of Hyrule Warriors, you get the spinner weapon. And so what it probably, if they had done something, and we would have heard it by now if they did, is that you would have had the Lucas amiibo, touch it to the sensor, and it would unlock a demo of Mother 3 in the Masterpieces section. But
yeah,
that would be the only way they could really do it, is say, like, hey, check out this game that's in the Masterpieces section.
Yeah, so, again, I'm not going to dash anybody's hopes. If you guys are hopeful that this is going to happen, great. If it does happen, even better. I would definitely like to actually play Mother 3 after I get through Mother 1 and 2, but let's go ahead and move on because there really isn't a whole lot else to add to this. And this next one is going to get my blood boiling just a little bit. So Representative Catherine Clark, for the last few years, has been on a crusade against, well, I can't say this properly, but shitty behavior on the internet. AKA, she's been fighting the trolls. Good on ya! I don't know why I'm holding a pen. Good on you! Fight the trolls! Except, it's either fight the trolls or just don't feed the trolls.
Well,
which is what we're doing.
More specifically, she's not necessarily campaigning against the trolls in general. What she's specifically fighting against is the practice of swatting, which is where someone will call in a fake phone call to a 911 dispatch center and basically say, oh, this person's holding these hostages.
They've got a gun!
Yeah, like, they've got a gun, they have this whole building taken hostage, they're going to start killing people. Basically giving them such an escalated scenario that requires them to send in the SWAT team.
Which is appropriate, considering that Catherine Clark, who is against swatting, got swatted.
Oh, jeez.
Yep. This happened.
Way to prove her point, people. Way to prove her point.
Basically, she was at home with her I believe it was her husband and kids, and all of a sudden, I'm actually looking. So here's what basically happened, according to the Boston Globe. While the congresswoman and her husband were at home watching TV, police blocked off the street, the flashing lights alerting Representative Clark to the presence of multiple officers, some with long guns, on her front lawn. The report says that Representative Clark had received a report of an active shooter at her house where her 13 and 16-year-old boys had just gone to bed. So congratulations, cops. Actually, no, I don't want to blame the cops here, but congratulations, SWATers. You made sure that none of them got a wink of sleep that whole night.
Mm-hmm. Now, to be fair,
crap like that, that's gonna take place in hours, not in minutes.
Mm-hmm. And
sorry, go ahead.
The key thing the article makes sure to stress is that these were normal cops. They weren't specifically SWAT team members because they probably knew that this was a representative, and they probably wanted to avoid escalating the situation any further because a lot of people tend to forget being a cop is a very high-stress job. It is literally one of those jobs where a split-second decision can mean the difference between life and death, which is why swatting is such a bad thing because one wrong move and some poor kid who's getting swatted could end up with a bullet through their head because the cops may not realize that the person's been swatted. And really, I'm kind of in support of what this congresswoman is pushing for, in which they would make swatting a felony because, well, it should be a felony.
It should.
Not only are you taking away police officers from, not only are you basically taking resources away from actual incidents that could require actual SWAT team and police interference, all for a stupid prank, but you're also increasing the likelihood of civilians being shot for no good reason. And in the wake of a lot of police shootings and people patrolling police brutality, is this really the kind of thing we want? Do we really want to make it harder for cops to do their job and think, oh, see, they're to like have hair triggers and stuff like that because they shot civilians? Just people.
Okay, there's something that needs to be said here, people. Here's why swatting is such a douchey thing to do. When cops see the report, there's a gun on the premises. It's being used. They are in alert mode when they walk in. They are literally training themselves that anything that comes within their vision range is a possible threat. That includes a 13 or 16-year-old boy holding a toothbrush in their hands. Because they don't know it's a toothbrush right away, they have to treat every situation as it goes. So, first of all, yeah, you could potentially have an accidental shooting because there are a lot of objects out here, boys and girls, that can be construed as a gun. Or here's an even better excuse. A 16-year-old boy with a baseball bat is considered a threat because he could swing that bat. And therefore, an accidental shot could be fired. This is crap that can literally go on. And dude, it's not just hazardous to the families. The officers have to live with the fact they did this shit.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, this is a waste of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's
your
not
tax
only,
dollars at work.
It's not only that you are taking them away from other possible emergencies. For all you know, there's a drunk driver on the other end of town that needed their attention. You're also taking away from their budget because they're the ones that actually have to spend tons of dollars to be able to get the weapons that they need, the Kevlar that they need, the bullets that they need, the smoke or the tear gas that they need. You're taking away from those resources because they have to use it on a false call. That's crap they have to pay for again, people. And on top of that, it is just the first time I ever meet a guy who actually swats, I will probably punch them in the face. I probably will. And then I will punch them in the nuts.
Well, better idea.
If they don't have nuts.
Well, better idea. Report them to the police, because although it's not a felony, it is still a crime to basically make a false call.
Yes.
Because it is. I mean,
the problem that I have with that though is I agree with it that it's a federal felony, but most of the time when swatting happens, people are states away, and so at that point it takes a while for their local authorities to catch these people, and by then they probably are on the lam. So,
that's implying that the people who swat are actually intelligent. Because we did report in the past that there was somebody who was known for swatting and calling in bomb threats that did eventually get caught because he was stupid and didn't cover his tracks, which we do not endorse, by the way, because we're against the whole behavior in general.
Well, here's my basic assessment. All criminals are stupid. And here's the reason why. When I have to see online personalities actually work through their plot holes, when they should have been doing this, because occasionally some of these things have been months in planning, that's a problem. But I'm not going to say too much on the matter. It's official. Drac called all felons stupid. Well, yeah, you committed a crime. Look, there's a difference between committing a crime on Grand Theft Auto, people, and committing a crime in real life.
Well, yeah, and although that could open up a whole different debate regarding certain laws, stuff like that, that's not something we want to get into right now. Point being, swatting someone who's actively working in Congress to get swatting elevated to a felony, probably not a good idea when you're trying to prevent that.
At the top of her list, people.
You're at the top of her list. Yeah, you're basically just giving her more reason to push it as a felony. Some people are saying it should even be made a federal crime. That way they don't have to worry about state jurisdictions, which, well, I think that might be a bit harsh. I wouldn't be entirely against, but yeah, it could lead to some, let's just say, what some people might consider excessive punishment, especially if the person swatting is a minor. That opens up a whole bunch of legal stuff, because trying somebody for a federal crime requires you to take it to a federal court, which is a whole other beast in and of itself. That's why they usually save federal courts for really, really hefty crimes. So I'm not really for having it be a federal felony, but as a felony on the state level, It should be, because it's dangerous and it's stupid.
Yes. Shadow Blazer, you've been quiet on this matter, but you have held the same crusty look on your face. You have something to say, good sir.
Yeah. Swatting is the most asinine thing I think you could do, really. And, there's the classic saying, the few ruin it for the many. And one day, swatting will get somebody probably killed or otherwise seriously hurt, and then there's going to be even more stricter and...
Well, that's assuming it hasn't already. Like, we just haven't heard about it.
I hope not. Jeez, it's bad. And then there's going to be even more worse laws that, well, rather than actually go after that take care of the people who swat, it just ruins it for the rest of us in some way or fashion. I can't think of anything specific, but I can just see that one day swatting's going to go too far, and then there's going to be a bunch of laws that make the rest of us suffer because of it.
Well, here's the thing, is that eventually we're going to come across a swatting that happened with not necessarily a militant family, but a family that wants to protect their children, and they don't know why the people in black armor is coming in. And so at that point, we could actually have like a real standoff, a real problem. And it's on, as far as I am concerned, whether or not we find out who it is, it's on the swatter's head. Because, like, if anybody gets shot, because, I mean, here's the likelihood here that could possibly happen. When a father or a mother is defending their home and they're armed, eventually there's going to be some kind of a shootout. Whether or not it was egged on or whatever, that's going to be a thing. That's why swatting needs to stop. This could eventually end badly, not just for the cops. This could end badly for the families. This ends badly, period. Because, I mean, for all the people who don't like the people who rant about budgets and whatnot, they have a reason to rant when this crap's going on. When somebody like 2 states over is calling in saying, somebody's got a gun! And that guy's never owned a gun in their lives? There's so much wrong with this whole concept. I actually agree with Representative Clark. I think it should be a federal felony. Mainly because I really do think this is one of those things where, and I'm not the guy who likes to say I want a whole lot of new government spending, but, well, this would be one of those great things where you could actually get a task force together to actually... Because, I mean, as soon as I heard about a swatting ring, like, well, yeah, now we need a frickin' task force because there's a frickin' mafia of people who do this. That's a sad thing in and of itself, people. There is a group of people who love doing this and group together. So, okay. Rant over?
Yeah.
I could rant all night, people.
Well,
please
I think
don't do this.
Yeah, I think we've hammered the point home. Swatting is stupid and dangerous, and nobody should do it because it's a waste of time and could lead to somebody getting killed. Anybody who tries to endorse said practice should probably be reported to the proper authorities because, well, again, it's a crime to make false calls. I think it's only a misdemeanor at this point.
Yes.
The Congresswoman is pushing to make it a felony, which I agree with. I don't know about...
It's the equivalent of prank calling 911, roughly. I actually had to go get this explained from friends and family. It's pretty much, if you do this, it's the equivalent of prank calling 911. That's how much you will, like, you'll get a fine, maybe, depending on the state. But putting this as a federal felony, because it is a big deal, while I'm not for the bigger spending on the matter, it's kind of necessary at this point because there are people who organize and do it. So, all right. So moving on. Go ahead.
Just a final thought, and they're not as anonymous as they may think they be, because there actually is an article linked to this that links to a Reddit post talking about how somebody actually managed to track down some of these swatters. So through things like Amazon. It's like they mentioned stuff like Amazon, Reddit, all these various websites that these people would frequent, because these were people who would stream the swatting, them doing the swatting on Twitch. And so it's kind of the case of, for those of you who think, oh, swatting is fun, yeah, you're not as anonymous on the internet as you may think. If you do it, they will find you.
No, that pissed me off. That they actually. Okay, that's how bad this situation has gotten. If they are actually broadcasting to Twitch that they are doing it, because that's damning evidence right there, and they don't care. Which probably means that they've got it covered up, which pisses me off even more. Anyway, we got to move on because I could literally talk about this all night. So we're basically moving into another problem subject. This happened, I believe, last week and has been going on into this week. And it started from a more popular source, but it's been going on for quite a while now. For fans of either the Nostalgia Critic or Channel Awesome, you'll notice that they put out a video called What the Hell YouTube? And so a lot of people went, okay, well, what's going on here? And Doug actually goes into the explanation of, so for some reason, and the reason still to this moment has not been explained, YouTube put a copyright strike on their account, took away monetization, took away live streaming, took all of their privileges away. Technically, for a copyright strike, at least according to their knowledge, on a Studio Ghibli video that they did, I'm guessing it was one of Doug Walker's Disdecember videos, but basically the fact that they went through all of the hoops that YouTube has made available to content creators, and for 3 weeks received no response. Flatline. Nothing. It took Doug Walker doing a video called What the Hell YouTube, and I think a few days later, it was all gone.
Not completely, because they still have the whole thing where they can't upload videos longer than 15 minutes.
Actually,
they just have monetization back.
Actually, I think that might have changed as of at least a day or two, because I did notice they have a good, like, a 45-minute video on their channel now, so I think they've got their full time limit back.
So, again, nothing was ever explained to Doug Walker or to anybody on Channel Awesome when this happened. Nothing. Still, to my knowledge, they have not received a response from YouTube. And they even put up a part 2 for it. Now, a lot of people actually got on their case and said this is just the same as when Angry Joe came out and ranted about the fact that Content ID literally put a stranglehold on all of his videos. So he was not getting any money on any of them. And kind of criticized Doug Walker for doing the exact same thing. But guys, that's what it took to get any kind of a response. And here's the thing, Doug was the most popular one that got hit. If you actually look into his videos, or into the description, he actually puts up some other people that have been affected. Lesser known.
And it's not even just monetization getting ripped away, it's also channels being taken down.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Just videos gone, your account no longer exists, and nothing being done. This is so. A lot of people have gotten on Doug's case for calling this "What the hell YouTube," but you know what? I'm going to repeat it. What the hell YouTube? And the fact, I mean, if you had a legitimate explanation, fine, we'd have something to talk about. But all of a sudden, 3 weeks, no response. He makes a rant video, it's all mystically gone. Or at least a good portion of it is mystically gone. It's almost like YouTube wasn't expecting Doug to make a video. It's almost like they were trying to put their iron fist down. And Doug is, because to my knowledge, the channels that he put up, they still have or are still having their problems. So that's the thing, people. That's kind of disgusting, YouTube. And yeah, I know, we're streaming on YouTube right now. That's a disgusting practice.
And really, I think the big problem that a lot of people are speculating is that it may be a problem with the actual algorithm, because a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the Content ID and all of that, it's all automated. Especially whenever a video is uploaded to YouTube, it's sent through an automated filter to look for copyrighted content.
Yep.
And that's also the problem, is that they basically are trying to automate every step of the process, but that leads to a system that can be very easily abused by certain companies, as well as having a lot of issues like this. And so it's very much pointing out the big problem that you can't have it all be automated without having a second system there making sure that the algorithms are doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, and we're talking about the fact that Google is like automating the crap out of this system. Why are they automating it? So they don't have to have a whole big staff on the matter. But that's the thing. That's what could have fixed this a lot sooner, is that they had an active staff that was watching these content ID complaints and actually, like, there was somebody to talk to for, I'm guessing it wasn't Doug, it was probably Rob Walker, who was trying to go through this whole process. If he had a person to talk to, they could have figured this out a lot sooner, and you wouldn't have gotten the stink video. In fact, he probably would have come on and gone, hey, this is just a problem, and we were able to get this resolved, and the guy that we talked to is willing to talk to any of you. Here's who you talk to. But no, that's not what happened. This was a completely automated response, which is one of the downsides of trying to do this kind of thing. I'm glad that you brought up the companies, Romney, because, well, we just brought up Nintendo. Nintendo's one of the biggest outliers in this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
They will literally do the content ID complaints, wait the 30 days, and then reinstate it.
Yeah, and that's another big problem, is that there's no penalties in place for companies that abuse it, which is another big thing that needs to be addressed, is that if a company is making claims and is especially trying to quell reviews, because I mean Jim Sterling was dealing with it with certain videos talking about early access games he reviewed on Steam, with people trying to take down his videos.
Or Total Biscuit was dealing with it too.
And currently, there's no penalty in place for the people who make these false claims.
No, there's penalties.
That is also a problem.
There's penalties on our end, but like, if I did a game, let's just say for the sake of argument, I did a review of Fez. Phil Fish, just to be a dick, could come onto my channel, yank that content, not just remove the funding, but he could block that off completely. So it's not getting viewed at all. Just to be a dick. He doesn't have to cite a reason. In fact, I haven't actually seen this forum, but to my knowledge, what I've heard about the forum is that, does a reason have to be cited to enact it? No. Nope. Not at all. And they can just reenact it 30 days later.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I'm glad you brought up Jim Sterling, and I know Angry Joe has had this happen too. Total Biscuit has had it happen, where all of a sudden their videos are yanked because magically now there's a copyright strike. Even though they have letters saying, yes, we're going to review this and we have your permission. So, and here's the thing, we've only heard of the good examples. I'm sure there are bad examples out there of people not even caring that you put up a stink video on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
They keep it off. So this is a crappy practice. We've said it numerous times before that this is something that YouTube should fix, and fix soon. Because as of right now, I mean, granted, YouTube is like the only place, unless you want to go to Vimeo or Dailymotion, to distribute videos. And there is literally, there's plenty of rights to the big companies that own these things, but when you look at YouTube content creators, they don't have much say.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a little lopsided, people. So, I mean, I've started reviews on my channel, and I'm just waiting for that one moment where I say something bad about this developer, and that video gets yanked. Because it could happen, people.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, Romney, do you guys have anything you want to interject on this one?
I've dealt with this plenty of times. I have I have so many videos that still are stuck with fake flags from bogus content ID claimants that I can't get rid of. But sure, I can dispute it, and I did dispute some of them. But they can just turn around and just keep it going, and there's nothing I can do about it. That's something YouTube you need to fix your broken-ass system. This is ridiculous. I mean, at least Doug Walker, right? He's a big big YouTuber that he can at least get this kind of attention, get this kind of feedback.
Which is funny when we say that. He wasn't a big YouTuber until Blip basically forced him to move to YouTube. He didn't want to deal with YouTube.
Yeah. Unfortunately, ironically, he's been forced to come back. It was YouTube. Yeah. YouTube drove him off to Blip in the first place. Now, unfortunately, he's been driven back, ironically. But, you know, and that's not me trying to, like, oh, of course he's big and he's got support. I'm not trying to not be critical of that. I'm just saying, because of that, that's right. But and Doug acknowledges this too. It's like, yeah, I'm big and I've got the community support, but what about the smaller YouTube channels that don't have quite the same vocal backing behind them? You need to worry about them too. So, and that's me. I'm the small channel without the giant vocal backing, but we all have to worry about this content ID system, and we need it fixed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I actually appreciate Doug for actually putting up the other channels that are having issues and actually saying what those issues are. You know, after he's talked to them, or at least somebody in Channel Awesome has. So at that point, that also says, well, even the big guys look out for the little guys. And this crap. I also like how Doug kind of mentioned this, is that, look, we're all content creators here. This just can't happen. And frankly, YouTube, no, it can't. Otherwise, when the next big thing actually happens, how many people are actually going to jump ship when it looks so much better?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was tempted, like, for a while there when I heard talk of Twitch, like, moving over to a YouTube-like service when Amazon acquired them. They aren't doing anything like that. They're strictly live streaming, and I'm fine with that. But man, if they did it and they actually had, like, way better services, I'd be making the arguments to just move my channel over, probably the stuff that I do with Alex, moving the podcast over to Twitch, because at least I would be able to say I'm probably going to be more fairly treated. Because right now, it's guaranteed with YouTube, I'm probably not going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, Romney, do you have any thoughts on this aside from what you said?
Not really. It's just the big thing is that YouTube needs to implement a system that penalizes the people who make fraudulent claims. Because although content creators could get flagged for making false claims, because that is something they mention when you're actually having to issue takedowns, because we've both have had to issue takedowns when somebody either pirated Geek News or when they pirated some of my videos and uploaded it to their channel. We've had to issue takedowns, and so the penalties like, oh, making false claims could lead to revoking your privileges. You need to impose some of these same penalties on these larger companies, because this can't keep happening. And I don't want to get into the whole Trans-Pacific Partnership thing, because I know people would start to say, oh, but if the people sign that's going to be part of it. But no, this can't be happening, because for now, at least, the Trans-Pacific Partnership isn't ratified, so that's not part of the equation yet. But it's something that they need to go to these larger companies and saying, hey, here in the U.S., we have a certain clause of our copyright law saying that people can use copyrighted content for these purposes, and you can't take down these videos if they're being used for these purposes. You have to actually evaluate them and see if they're being considered, if it falls under fair use. You can't just take them down just because.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing: an automated system is just not going to do that.
And Google's got the team of lawyers. It's not even just like, oh, but we're tiny and video sharing site. No, Google, you've got the lawyers. You can actually go to Nintendo and say, hey, you can't keep doing this because this violates U.S. law. Well, you actually have the manpower to do it. So the whole, oh, we're a tiny site, we're defenseless, that's not an excuse, Google.
No. And on top of that, like, I get that you want to basically have a little bit more profit margin and you want to be able to bring in a little bit more money. And I get that, guys. I'm just as much a capitalist, and I would love to be able to do that myself. However, when you automate things to hell, systems are going to make mistakes. And when you don't have people in place to actually fix those mistakes, of course you're going to have issues like this. There really should just be a team of people, and yes, Google, you've got the funds to be able to do this, to be able to go through those claims. And yes, I know there's hundreds of thousands that get put in, but you need to at least make an effort to be able to go through those claims and say, okay, does this fall under fair use or does it not?
Or to even keep it simpler, if they don't have to go through the copyright claims, look at the disputes. Have people actually looking at the disputes, so that way they can actually evaluate it. Because then you're not looking at as many. Yeah, there's thousands of disputes, but at least you're not having to verify every claim from every large company. But you can look at the disputes and see if the disputes actually hold water, instead of the whole 30-day thing, and basically prevent people from waiting the 30 days for the 30-day time limit.
Even at the very least, like I said before, the companies don't have to cite reasons. Even if you had just simply done this whole process of, okay, the first time that Nintendo puts up a copyright claim on this video, and a people team, like a team of people, actually go out and say, okay, Nintendo, cite your reason for why this is happening. And if Nintendo gives no response, then there's your answer. You take it away. Because because if they're not even willing enough to give you a response on the matter, it must not be important to them.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, a lot of those cases you're going to bring company backlash, but maybe that's what needs to happen, so that they can actually assess whether or not a tiny guy on YouTube is actually hurting their profit margin. So, anyway, let's go ahead and move on. Because, again, this is a subject we could talk about all night, people. All freaking night. And we have yet another story that's going to make us a little frustrated, but more along the lines of it's kind of our worst nightmares realized. So, we've talked positively about Kickstarter before, but we've also talked negatively about them. And we just had the most extreme problem that Kickstarter can have happen. So, in June 2014, Eric Terenshiki, I think that's how you say his name, and his partners raised almost $4,500 to work on a series of games called Ant Simulator.
Actually, what it is that they were working on a series of game development tutorials that walked people through the making of the game Ant Simulator.
Yeah, so they did that. But then on January 30th, I believe, of last year... No.
This year.
Last year? This year, okay. January 30th of this year, Terenshiki announced that he was resigning from the project. He alleges that his business partners were secretly stealing all the company money and spending it on, quote, liquor, restaurants, bars, and even strippers. Kickstarter's finest, people. So thankfully, Eric has a little bit more of a backbone than these idiots and resigned from the project when he found out that that's where the money was going.
I love the top. But can I say I love the top comment that I bet I know who one of his business partners was, and it's Bender from Futurama. That is something Bender would do.
It is indeed. It is indeed. I didn't realize that Bender the robot already existed, but yeah. So. We actually do have a couple of quotes from Eric, basically saying a lot of people are telling him to seek legal advice. He has. The problem is that these guys cover their asses in the contract. So basically what he's done is he has resigned from the company. It's fairly certain he's not going to work with them again. And unfortunately, it doesn't really look like Kickstarter's going to do much on this matter. Because as far as we know, the project funded, which means... even though you were promised a product, Kickstarter doesn't have to make sure that it was delivered upon. Yes, technically, when your project money goes through, this can happen. People can just go spend it on liquor and women. And restaurants and bars and bears. Oh my. They can spend on it all. I am personally disgusted. Because not on Kickstarter's end. I want to make this clear. I am not pissed off at Kickstarter. Kickstarter has made their position very clear. They are the middleman. I am more pissed off that this company basically took the $4,500 that their backers gave and shoved it back up their butts by going and doing what they wanted with it. I'm not going to really fault Eric Terenshiki on the matter because it sounds to me like he had plans for it, and he's done the stand-up deal of resigning from the company after he found out that this was going on. But nonetheless, this happened. And so this is showing kind of the darker side of how a Kickstarter can go.
Yeah.
Am I saying don't ever contribute to a Kickstarter again? No. But this is something you have to keep in mind. Sorry, Romney, I interrupted you.
That's all right. It's because in the article there's also an update in which one of the business partners in question has issued an official response and is basically calling all the claims BS. Literally, like saying that calling the claims 100% bullshit. That's from Tyler Mons, who is listed as the director of finance for ETSKI, which is the company that was making Ant Simulator. So it's now very much a case of both sides pointing fingers.
Yeah, but it also sounds to me like this couldn't have been avoided. It really does sound to me like they did not leave on amicable terms. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if 6 months down the road we find out there was completely different circumstances involved and neither one was telling about any of it. For all we know, Eric was part of it. But we don't have that evidence yet. And frankly, this is just a bad situation all around. Because, I mean, if that's where the money went, congratulations, all those Kickstarter backers. You just got kicked in the face. And so, again, I'm going to emphasize, I'm not saying don't back things on Kickstarter. Do what you want to do. But keep this in mind. Take each Kickstarter with a grain of salt.
Yeah, it's a lot like investing in the stock market where you have to be aware of the risks involved. I mean, I've contributed to Kickstarters and have had them go absolutely nowhere. So I know the feeling. But like anything with investing, you have to be aware of the risks involved. Nothing is set in stone when you're putting money into these projects. That's the first rule of any crowdfunding, any investment of any kind. I mean, if we were like investing in something in the traditional way, like say if I were to go out and buy stock in some investment firm, the risks are still there that company could go under at any moment.
Well, and here's the premise that you have to keep in mind, is that you are taking this game developer, this inventor, at their word. That's what you have, is you are basically shaking their hand, you're doing an online, shaking their hand, and hoping that they succeed. And if the Kickstarter doesn't get funded, great, you get your money back. That's just the way it is. But if it gets funded, and then you find out that your money went to things like liquor and strippers, there's not a whole lot you can do on the matter. That's kind of just on you. Unfortunately, you're the dude with sucker painted on your face. That's kind of the downside of the matter. I personally have also contributed to Kickstarters. I contributed to Screw Attack back when they were trying to get SGC back up and running. I've contributed to Koji Igarashi for Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I've done all this stuff, but here's another thing that I also kind of do. First of all, I don't go for the high-end, like 200-backed deal, like where you're going to get artwork and a signed T-shirt and all that. I don't go with that. Like if I decide to go with it, it's after the thing is funded. I don't do it when it's actively seeking. And on top of that, I do my homework on whom is making this claim. So, like I said, I'm doing popular developers. Tim Schafer, Koji Igarashi, Hideo Kojima. If he was going to do that, I would know my homework on them. But if I didn't know, I would go look them up and see if they've done any other kind of Ponzi schemes under their record. Okay? So, again, I'm not saying don't use Kickstarter and Kickstarter is evil. Kickstarter is not evil. But unfortunately, the people that use Kickstarter can potentially be.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, after all, there was that guy who got $10,000 to make potato salad.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Moving on before Romney has to pull out the pillow.
Yeah, no, that's
I saw the look on your face. I'm like, backing away.
Yeah, that's not like a scream into the pillow moment. That's a grab a bottle and take a huge swig moment.
Yes, it really is. So we get to end the tech portion on a high note this evening. Now, this is another listener suggestion, and we love listener suggestions. Keep them coming. However, I think I need to take... Again, this is one of those stories where you need to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, treat news stories the way you would treat tequila, people. You've got to put on the salt, otherwise you're not drinking tequila properly.
So, here's the thing. The DICE Awards for 2016 have just gotten themselves 2 fancy new keynote speakers, in the form of Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro. Yep, you heard me right, Internet. And the Internet went crazy.
Mm-hmm.
How so, you might ask? Well, very simple. People are assuming immediately that they're not going to do a keynote speech, they're going to announce a collaborative project. Now, before people fly in my face and say, how dare you crush their hopes, that could potentially happen. However, it is a keynote speech.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some rules to it. And on top of that, I don't think they have anything planned.
Yeah, looking at what it is, it's more or less kind of pretty much what they're doing is more akin to a panel you would see at Comic-Con, for example, where it's titled A Conversation Between Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro, and it's moderated by Jeff Keighley.
Oh, yes, and that makes it so much better.
And so really it's just more or less going to be like a panel where the two of them are probably going to have a bit of a discussion about the games and about being creative, the game's development process. They may touch on some of the stuff that happened with Silent Hills.
Yeah, obviously within logical leaps that they can do. I mean, obviously they don't want to bring lawyers into it.
Well, yeah, especially given although Hideo is no longer has to abide by his non-compete agreement, he probably had to sign a few NDAs when he left Konami.
He did.
And Del Toro as well. So it's very much a case of they're probably not going to go into too much detail. They'll probably talk about their personal experiences. And although they say they're open to working together once more, well, Kojima's still in the planning stages of whatever he's got cooked up for the PS4. So it is way too soon for all of us to assume that he's going to be doing some sort of collaboration.
Yeah, people, I don't think you're going to get anything more than, are you guys working on something? Well, yeah, we'd like to work on something together, which Hideo has already said, and I think Guillermo has said too, they'd love to do it. Although Guillermo, I like his response better, which is like, I'd probably better not, because I ruin whatever I touch when it comes to games.
And basically,
somebody pat him on the back.
Yeah, his exact words saying, if I collaborate with another game developer, World War III will break out.
Yeah. What were the examples? He used Silent Hills, and then there was another one. I don't know if it was Hideo he worked with.
No, it was a previous game with a different developer, I think.
Yeah, and that got canceled, and then he brings up Silent Hills, and that got canceled, and then he just says, yeah, I'd probably better... I'm sorry, let me see if I can dig out a Guillermo. I'm sorry, I better not, because if I do, this is going to start up World War III. It's like... Poor Guillermo. Can somebody please just pat him on the back? Can we get Ron Perlman to come out of nowhere and just pat him on the back?
It's like not even just a bad. I think it's just Guillermo needs a hug. It's plain and simple. He needs a hug.
Yes, Hideo. In fact, I'm actually going to cite this. This is the new rumor. Hideo Kojima will go to the keynote speech and give Guillermo a big hug because he needs it. Guillermo, I'm sure it's not your fault that these things went under. I promise. But yeah, that's pretty much what you're gonna get, I think. I doubt that they've had 6 months of collaboration in between all of the crap that Konami has been going through with Hideo. So I think at the very most, if you think there's going to be a collaborative effort, it's going to be, and I'm sure Jeff is going to respond to this. One of the first questions that Jeff is going to ask is, are you collaborating on a game? And both of them will look at each other and go, well, we'd like to, but we don't have anything right now. So I hate to dash your hopes, Internet, but there's no way they could have had anything working during that whole spat between Konami and Kojima. There's no way. So, Shadow Blazer, your thoughts on the fact that Hideo Kojima needs to actually just go on stage and give Guillermo a hug?
Well, yeah, you should go on stage and give him a hug, absolutely.
Yes!
Yeah, you said pretty much all that can be said about it. It's more likely they're just going to get together, talk about the creative process, and pretty much say, well, maybe something could be in the cards, and we'll see. That's really what it's going to be. It's going to be, we'll see, maybe.
Yeah, that and like if people are expecting them to talk, we already kind of covered this, but if you're expecting them to talk a lot about Silent Hills, it's just not going to happen. They'll probably be able to talk about it conceptually, but they can't actually like talk about the assets that they were working on. So that's another thing to keep in mind, people. And here's the thing. If they announce something, let's just say for the sake of argument that they announce something, it's not going to be Silent Hills, people. It may be a horror game, but it's not going to be Silent Hills. That is a Konami property.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, hate to dash your hopes. But I do love the fact that not only is Kojima going to go to do the keynote speech, I believe, yeah, he's going to enter into the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think we actually reported on that a couple weeks ago.
So at this point, it's just like, wow, everybody's just trying to stick it to Konami however they can. Kojima doesn't need to do jack because everybody wants to stick it to Konami for Kojima.
At least for a little while until everybody in the world has beaten the Phantom Pain, and then they'll probably think, okay, now it's time for you to actually come out with something else.
Yeah. So I'm excited for this. I will definitely want to watch their keynote if it gets posted online. I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to watch the live airing of the DICE Awards, let's see, it's the 16th through the 18th. So yeah, I probably won't be able to, but I would still like to see this, just to see those two come onto a stage and actually talk about their insights into the creative industry. So with that actually kind of wraps up the tech events. Now we get into the silly, because when it comes to entertainment, the first couple of months of a year, that's all you get, people. So I swear, we covered this like 2 years ago, Romney. I swear.
The story does seem a little familiar.
It does seem a little familiar, but we're covering it again because it bears repeating. And in fact, I had to show this to my wife because she was absolutely excited. So, for those who didn't know, a movie based off of the NES game,
well,
yeah,
not just NES.
Also on Sega.
Well, the thing is, it was an arcade game first and foremost.
Yes, okay.
It was an arcade game called Rampage, and if the people don't know what it was actually about, you played as insert King. It started with King Kong and
Basically,
Godzilla or derivatives.
Like, giant monkey, giant lizard, giant werewolf. Those were the three characters.
And
you go and destroy a city. That's
Smash
roughly
stuff,
what it is.
eat people, knock down helicopters. Basically, you got to live out your fantasies of being a giant monster causing complete chaos. It's a really fun game.
Yeah, no, they are. So there's going to be a movie based off of Rampage, and I believe this is what we did cover, is that Dwayne Johnson is officially signed on to be a part of it. And I think, is this the story that started the whole Boulder thing with us?
No, that was back when he was announced when he was like trying to campaign for Black Adam.
That's right.
The whole
It wasn't Black Adam. It was Green Lantern.
Yeah, like Green Lantern, but it was also around the time that Hercules was was getting announced, getting ready to go. That's where for those of you who aren't familiar with the show, we had a running joke back in the days of Radio SLCC where we basically kept saying that The Rock was turning into a boulder because...
What are you trying to say, Romney? Are you trying to say The Rock is becoming a boulder? Is he? Well, that's one thing you don't know about The Rock. It's that The Rock likes pie. And sometimes pie creates, or it turns The Rock into a boulder.
Yeah. And again, it's because, as we've all seen over the years, he's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Even compared to
that's not very fair, because like the guy gets trim for like the Fast and the Furious movies.
Well, the thing is, it's not that he's getting bigger because he's getting fat. It's just more that his muscles keep getting bigger, and everyone's just like, dude, we get it. You're buff. You don't have to keep getting crazy, man. Yes. I mean, even compared to his WWE days, he's gotten a lot more buff compared to his time as a wrestler.
Okay, I'm glad you brought it up because like he goes back occasionally, right? And one of the things I love seeing, because occasionally I will watch some wrestling stuff. I have no problem admitting that. I actually do like kind of the stories that some of them have to tell of trying to make their way up. I especially like Steve Austin's career. But even they will make jokes that after 6 months, The Rock comes back, and for some reason, he's buffer than he was before. The reason I was making the Boulder joke was because after he does a film, and nothing against you, Dwayne, I love you. I love doing my rock voice. But when you get on that red carpet, it looks like you've let yourself go just a little bit. And you know what? I have no problem with that. Because at that point, I've seen the horror stories of like people doing superhero films and they have to eat this strict as hell diet. And so at that point, when you're done filming, go and eat a cheeseburger. I don't care.
Because they're good for your soul.
That technically...
The very thing you keep
we
getting
went from one Geek
for
News meme to another. And so at that point, that's why I made the Boulder joke. Is because people actually got on Dwayne's case when he would go to the red carpet and he had a little bit of a gut.
Really? I thought the joke was just the fact that because his muscles were just getting... I thought that was the reason behind the Boulder joke, was because he was just getting more...
Joke too, but...
Well, yeah, that's what I thought was the joke, was because he was just getting buffer and buffer, like his muscles just kept getting more and more ripped. I thought that's what I thought the joke of the Boulder was that his muscles were getting bigger and he'll eventually become a mountain.
No. But that would be a joke that I would love to do.
But to bring it back to the details that have recently broke, because although we reported that they were making Rampage and that Dwayne Johnson is set to star, the new details are emerging is that they've basically nabbed a couple of screenwriters to help write the screenplay for this upcoming adaptation. And those writers are Carlton Cuse and Ryan Condal, who are basically the executive producers of the new USA sci-fi series Colony. That's their current claim to fame. And so these two writers, who were executive producers, have been signed on to rewrite the feature film adaptation of Rampage.
Yeah, so really quick, just kind of give people a little bit into their resumes. Carlton Cuse is primarily known for his TV work on Lost, Bates Motel, The Strain, and The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. That's the odd one out in that one. But he also worked on Lethal Weapon 2, and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So we do have somebody who's got quite a bit of writing chops there, along with Ryan Condal, who I actually couldn't find anything on.
Well, I actually have his filmography up right here.
Please go into it.
As a producer, he's produced The Sixth Gun, which was a TV movie in 2013. He's the executive producer on Colony. He's also the writer for The Sixth Gun and a short called Plurality. He was also the screenwriter for Hercules. So
that's how he met Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, so it could kind of go either way at this point. So
okay, first of all, I guess this is the one place where I can start from. I'm neither excited for this movie nor dreading it, because the game itself is a stupid premise. And I'm fine with that. So it could be a stupid movie as long as I'm munching popcorn while I'm watching it, then I'm fine. But I can't say that the writers are a big turn down from this. If anything, we should be more excited that it got writers. For the matter, because at this point the only thing that was going for it was that Dwayne Johnson was cast. So, great, good on you, but you still need a director, you still need writers, and that's the first thing that needs to happen. Would I like to see Rampage on the screen? Oh, you bet. Oh, you bet. I'd pay money to go see. I'd pay money to get a group review of that crap, just so that we can make fun of it. But it has to come out first.
It has to be made first.
Yes, it has to be made first. It has to come out. As far as Dwayne Johnson still being in it, I can't even did we actually come up with a speculation on who he was in it? I would think he'd be like an army guy.
Well, it depends on whether they're having him. It depends on whether they're having him play the monster or because the story of Rampage, there isn't really much of a story. It's three people who were hit by toxic waste and turn into these giant monsters.
Yep.
And playing the game, you think, oh, well, you're the one playing the ones that are actually doing the smashing and the eating. So not really good hero material per se.
No, this is such a popcorn film.
Yeah, it's not even a popcorn film. It's just kind of a case of how can you make this into a movie? I mean, to kind of pull a skeleton out of the closet, it's a lot like Super Mario Brothers, where there's not much of a story there that you can really mine for a film. And so they're going to have to be really creative. Either they're going to have to play up the fact that, oh, we're watching three people. Like, here's how I would do it. Say I was brought on to write the film for Rampage. I probably would go kind of Secret Life of Walter Mitty, where it's basically three people whose lives are really boring, three office workers who just somehow have a collective hallucination that they get to turn into giant monsters and smash stuff. Like, kind of go in the full, oh, this is all taking place in their mind, it's all their delusion or something to that extent, because I cannot think for the life of me how you could turn the whole monster rampaging stuff into a movie without some sort of context like that, because again, you play a human who turns into a giant monster, and you're obviously
the thing you have to
hero.
consider here, people, is that there isn't a whole lot of plot to this.
There's not a lot of plot, and you're not playing the hero in this game. You are playing a monster smashing stuff. I mean, if you try creating a hero, you kind of end up with a similar situation that you get with War of the Monsters, where the story just doesn't really go anywhere. Because they tried doing the whole, oh, we have a hero character in form of the giant robot, but then they realized, well, that's kind of boring, so we'll just have the robot go rogue and have him still smash stuff, so that way players can still smash buildings to get points without, how? That's my brain still can't get past that. How are you going to turn this into a movie?
That's why in a lot of cases I'm more along the lines of this would be a popcorn flick, because there's just no story arc I can think of that wouldn't just be absolutely silly. Like, I can't write this and make it serious, is what I'm saying. I can't do it. Not in my head.
Yeah, so, it would have to be a comedy. That's like the only way I can make it. It would have to be a comedy, maybe a comedy, like, say, give it the Little Shop of Horrors stream. I'm not saying be a complete musical, although that would be funny to see, but just make it as a complete farce that just makes fun of the whole monster movie genre in kind of a style similar to what we see in Little Shop of Horrors and how it's also a bit of a farce.
Crap. Romney just set my mind to going. Now I can see Dwayne Johnson dancing down the street going, "It's monsters! Oh, it's just monsters!" ADD. Sometimes it just doesn't help.
Well, it would still look better than what we've been seeing in the trailer. It's like the film he's doing with Kevin Hart where he plays the CIA agent, and they have the clip of what he looked like in high school, and it looks absolutely creepy because it's basically the of the Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, it's the where he's supposed to be like a CIA agent or whatever.
Well, yeah, but then they have like a flashback to him in high school because he apparently was really fat in high school. It just
it's basically just him in a fat suit. Yeah.
No, well, in a very weird CGI fat suit that just does not look natural, and just again, it's called the Uncanny Valley, people. That moment is right smack dab in the middle of the Uncanny Valley.
I can already tell you, during his high school days, he couldn't wear that. He couldn't wear the shorty shorts like he could in his wrestling days. Alex, your thoughts on a Rampage movie?
Okay, well, Rampage. This was a game Andrea and I played quite a bit as kids. We loved playing it. We had it on Sega Master System, and we loved playing and smashing buildings. That was fun. This could make a fun movie. I'm a little worried because it's got the people behind San Andreas on it, but we'll see, I guess. I could see this working. I could see this. You could make it either something like, I don't know, the Incredible Hulk, where you do kind of have the person who smashes stuff as your kind of main character. Otherwise, I could see the three scientists are the minor characters, and Dwayne Johnson is the major character, and Dwayne Johnson is to stop the monsters. That's probably the way you'd have to do it if you're not going to do the monsters as the main focus of the story. But otherwise, I say go with the monsters as the focus of the story and just make it like the Incredible Hulk and break stuff and monster smash.
That's why we're saying that there is no hero in Rampage. It's like, because if you're going to do a Rampage movie, 80% of the people who are going to go see this movie just want to see them smash the city. That's really what they want to see.
Well, that's what
we want you to hire Toho to show all the footage of the smashing of the city. That's really what we want to do.
I mean, that's why we go to Godzilla movies. We want to see Godzilla. We want to see
watch
Godzilla
Power Rangers for crying out loud.
Well, Power Rangers. Yeah, well, Power Rangers we watch for the spandex, I think.
The spandex, and the martial arts.
Yeah. So, moving on. Go ahead, Alex.
It's good. I hope it's good. I mean, I do see that they're hoping to begin shooting this year. It's probably unlikely because we still don't seem to have a director for it.
Nope.
Yeah, just now my brain is. I just keep imagining how it would look like if they made the movie into a musical based on the arcade game. That would.
It's monsters, glorious monsters. Yep.
Well, yeah. Again, Little Shop of Horrors gives a pretty good template. I mean, if you get Frank Oz to direct.
So, I just got a little bit of a comment from a friend of mine on Twitter, and he has this to say about the fact that Dwayne being a major character. He actually thinks that Dwayne should be a scientist because he should be the giant ape, if for no other reason than when he actually runs out of his power-up, or in this case the chemicals, you'll get a snazzy little Terminator shot of his butt. And that will be women fan service. Well, I guess guy fan service too. So, yeah, that could happen too. He could be like the ape man or the wolf man, and all of a sudden we get a naked pic. I don't think Dwayne's had that happen to him before. Moving on. Because this just could go in so many different... I guess now we'll find out whether or not he is a rock or a boulder. Hi-yo! So, we gotta move on. I can't save this. So the next story that we have here is a confirmation that Gwendolyn Christie is going to be returning as Captain Phasma in Star Wars Episode 8. And I have, in fact, done my extra homework to confirm that, no, she will not be bringing the trash compactor with her. Okay, bad joke on my part. But you know what? I don't get why people have a problem with that scene. I thought it was funny.
It was funny.
It was funny. So, at that point, I don't know why this even needs to be mentioned. I kind of guessed that Phasma was going to be back, and she was probably going to get a bigger focus in Episode 8, because Episode 8 has to kind of be that Empire Strikes Back moment.
It's nice to have the confirmation, I guess, because Captain Phasma just kind of is, well, let's throw in the trash compactor, and we never really see her again after that, so...
Well, it was 80% of, like, yes, this chick's a badass. This chick's a badass, and then she does nothing in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to be fair, her character was more or less meant to be the Boba Fett of the new trilogy, and having her go out like that would have brought it full circle. It's just at least Boba Fett got 2 movies.
You had to bring in Boba Fett. Now I'm seeing in my head Captain Phasma escaping from the Sarlacc 3 times. Man, that Sarlacc just can't get a meal. So...
Yeah...
I'm not against this. I think it's a great idea. I thought, honestly, she was going to come back for Episode 8 because, again, it would be like an Empire Strikes Back kind of thing. I would have to think that Episode 8 would be a retaliatory tale of the Knights of Ren and the First Order going against the Resistance, not the Republic. The Republic's no more, but you would have this moment, and Phasma would be a prominent character, if for no other reason than she leads the troopers. So... I'm happy that they confirmed it, but I thought it was just going to happen. Do you guys have anything else to add on Captain Phasma returning, aside from, man, I could totally make a Dianaga joke, and I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I'd get such hate mail for it.
Yeah,
so
all I can say is it's probably not that far-fetched to assume she escaped. I mean, again, we obviously talking about the whole events. I mean, the spoiler alert thing is probably long past, but a lot of people thinking, oh, but how could she have gotten away from Starkiller Base? Well, easiest explanation, the trash compactor they threw into is probably rigged to, say, jettison its load prior to at certain intervals, and so it's probably a case of, oh, she just got jettisoned out into space prior to Starkiller Base going kablooey.
That's reasonable, that's reasonable, but I just prefer the explanation, a wizard did it.
Well, then again, Supreme Leader Snoke, he is a wizard.
That's
he probably
true.
did it. He's a space wizard.
I am Phasma the White, and I come back to you now at the turn of the tide. All right.
Well, would that technically mean she went down in rank? Because, I mean, white's the standard color of the Stormtrooper.
That's true, because silver would be that's the sign that she's higher in rank. So, yeah, you can't do that joke no, can you? Crap. So, yeah, great and all that we've confirmed that Gwendolyn Christie is coming back as Captain Phasma, but now we need to talk about the other confirmed casting that happened this week. And so I'm going to leave this off with my thoughts on the matter. So if you don't know already, the Power Rangers film has found its Rita Repulsa. And it is Elizabeth Banks. So, funny story, when I found out about, like, my week was busy this week. So when I saw the story, I'm like, oh, cool. Rita's confirmed. So at that point, great. I know I've seen the name somewhere. She doesn't look familiar, but...
the biggest role most people would know her from most recently is as Effie from the Hunger Games adaptations.
Yes. So at that point, I'm kind of brushing that off of... I know I've heard the name before. For some reason, I mixed her up in my head for those 2 days for Elizabeth Hurley. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because of Elizabeth. But then my wife found out about the casting, and she wanted to know what I thought. I'm like, well, that's cool. They found a Rita Repulsa. And she's like, you know who that is, right? I'm like, I know the name, but it's not coming to me on who she is. She's like, it's Effie from the Hunger Games. 5-minute silence.
5-minute silence.
What? It's Effie from the Hunger Games. Damn it.
Okay.
That's literally how I took it. I'm like, damn it. Because the nightmare scenario just went off in my head. I have always found Effie Trinket from the Hunger Games to be extremely creepy. For no other reason than she's wearing an Avon commercial. She is wearing so much makeup. And she's now going to be playing a character who is going to require at least some degree of makeup.
Probably a great deal, depending on how they want to interpret this version of Rita Repulsa. I mean, we've seen various reimaginings from various fan artists. It just depends on how they're going to approach it. And so, personally, I think she's probably a pretty good choice.
You're not helping, Romney. You're not helping.
Hey, this is coming from somebody who, again, stopped watching the Hunger Games movies after catching fire because I was so put off. But I can see it.
At that point, it's just like, because she freaked me out. I have no problem admitting that. The Effie Trinket makeup just freaked me the hell out. And now I'm just like, I can't enjoy Rita anymore. She's going to scare me.
Well, maybe that could be the intention they're going for.
Could be.
Again, there's a lot we don't know about this new movie. We don't know what direction they're taking it. Although personally, I'm moderately optimistic. I actually recently saw Project Almanac, and I can see why they chose Dean Israelite as the director, because he knows how to direct and write for teenage characters, and so that's probably why they figured, hey, this guy will be perfect, because, well, I actually kind of liked Project Almanac.
Wow.
Well, I'm ruled out, apparently, because I was the only one amongst this panel that didn't.
I mean, I can see why, because it does drag a little bit, but to get back on topic,
yeah,
she's a pretty good choice for the role, especially since they don't want to, like, say, nab a well-known star to play the part, because, well, it's obvious they're trying to keep this on a much smaller budget, and Elizabeth Banks has some notoriety as being Effie Trinket in the Hunger Games adaptations, but is at the point where, okay, she's not super expensive to hire on.
Exactly. So, I don't want people to take this the wrong way. I like the casting. I think it's a good idea. Even when I didn't know who she was, I looked at it and went, yeah, I could envision this person as Rita. I'm more just happy that we've confirmed that there's going to be Rita Repulsa, because up until this point, yes, we've said it's going to be a reboot, but they've made it clear that they don't have to necessarily take every single asset from it.
Yeah. Especially
they could leave Zordon out, you know? And so at that point, the fact that Rita Repulsa was confirmed, I was just more happy about, because Rita is going to be in it. I will give one piece of advice to Elizabeth Banks, though. Altoids. Stock up on them and use them frequently.
Huh? Dude, Altoids. Or what?
Stock up on them. You're going to be using them frequently.
I don't get it. I'm sorry.
Because Rita's got the shrill voice.
Because I have a headache!
Oh, it's just I never thought people would use Altoids to soothe the
headache. is the first thing that came to my mind. Like, insert cough drop here, because you're going to be using a lot of them.
Yeah, it's just I just
you're assuming she's going to go for the whole Barbara Goodson type of voice.
I want that.
Well, again, it could go either way. Maybe it'll be the whole Wicked Witch of the West sort of direction that Barbara Goodson was given. Maybe they might subdue it a little bit. Not to mention they maybe even be pulling references from the original Bandora performance by Machiko Soga, which was kind of similar in the whole witch sense, just wasn't to the degree that we got in Power Rangers. There's a lot of directions this could go. We just know for now Rita is the villain, but we know... Like, here's what we know about the Power Rangers film that we have covered thus far. For those of you who aren't familiar with the show and how much we know that all the Rangers have been cast. None of them are actually the same names as the original Rangers from the original television show, which personally I'm in favor of because, well, there's too much baggage, especially in regards to a certain character that I've come to find is a little bit overhyped.
Ooh, shots fired.
Who are you specifically referring to?
I'll be honest. Everybody
can't be Green because Green's not in it.
Well, Green's not in it, and I'm kind of glad about that because personally I think Tommy's a little bit overrated. And the worry I have is because one of the characters is named Callum Oliver. And so I hope they don't do the whole fanfiction idea of, oh, it's Tommy's son. And I'm just like, no. Clean break.
I was actually just going to say, if you didn't want Billy, we got some problems, Romney.
Wait, are you... No, Billy's my favorite character.
Exactly. No, that's why I was a little confused. I'm like, well, we already confirmed that the Green Ranger isn't in it, so it can't be Tommy. And so I'm like,
yeah,
Billy? You don't want Billy?
I don't think anyone would put Billy in the overrated list, Adam.
I love Billy!
Yeah, but point being, that's what we know about the film thus far. We know that there's some changes and some things that are the same, much like with any new adaptation. But to get back on point, in my opinion, pretty good casting choice for Rita Repulsa. We just don't know what direction they're going to take this version of Rita. If it's going to be exactly.
We need some concept scripts before and even then, like, we need the film.
We need a trailer at least.
Yeah, before we can make any kind of assessment. So, great, good on you, Elizabeth Banks. I think you'll do a good job, personally.
Sure.
Final thoughts on it, Alex? You haven't chimed in on Rita.
Yeah, I'm kind of good either way. I don't know, something about Power Rangers, I feel like you could, not like anybody, but I'm like, I feel like you could put almost anybody into any of these roles and it probably would fit. Obviously not like any huge celebrity roles, like not A-list actors necessarily, but I'm like, but when you go...
you're not going to see Anthony Hopkins as Zordon. It's just not going to happen.
Anthony Hopkins, that'd be awesome.
As awesome as that would be, not to mention he's really too expensive. I mean, anybody like Anthony Hopkins, Sean Connery, basically anybody that people know about, they're not going to hire. They kind of learned their lesson with Ivan Ooze.
Yeah. So at that point, let's go ahead and move on to the next story here. And this is nothing new, at least as far as I am concerned, but, well, the story happened, and I do know that one of our panelists actually brought it up, and then we also had a listener that brought it up. And I believe it was Romney, wasn't it, that brought it up?
Yeah.
So Lionsgate has acquired the film rights to the Magic Treehouse books. I hate to say this, I'm not familiar with this series of books, but as far as what I can actually gather about the story, it's basically that Lionsgate is looking for more movies to be able to make from books. So, I mean, I'm not surprised by this. They love to scoop those up and do as many of them as they can.
Yeah, I'm just worried about how they're going to handle it because, I mean, we've seen a big problem of people trying to either be the next Twilight, the next Harry Potter, and most certainly we're going to have somebody trying to be the next Hunger Games. And the thing is, the Magic Treehouse... They're a series of children's books, so it's not something you want to say make the same mistake Fox did with Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where they try to basically trick the Tolkien fans into seeing it when there's not a lot to it, where it's not meant to be like Tolkien. And, I mean, you could get some interesting stylistic stuff with the basic premise, which is basically about two kids who have a treehouse that take them through time. I haven't really read the books. I was more of a Time Warp Trio fan. So it's kind of the case. That's just the very basic premise.
Yeah. I've read the book, so I could probably chime in a little better on this if you want me to.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. So the whole idea of the Magic Tree House is these two kids, you're right, they have a Magic Tree House. It does take them through time, but it also takes them through literature. So they kind of learn about the world through literature, through books, and they do have to go back and usually find some sort of special item from a time period. And I don't know how many books they're at now. I mean, I read quite a few of them when I was still in elementary school. But they've gone through like all sorts of periods. You know, they've gone back to Pompeii, they've gone to Titanic, and they go to the Prairie in the 1800s. There's so many different eras they go to, and it's a pretty good series for kids. And there was actually an anime made out of it, a movie for it a couple of years ago, and it was a pretty good movie, I thought.
Okay, so yeah, again, this just sounds to me more like, you know, Lionsgate is scooping up some properties that they can do stuff with. I found it a little funny that Romney brought up that basically they're just trying to prevent people from becoming the next Hunger Games, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Romney, but there already is the next Hunger Games. It's called Divergent. Oh wait, that's also owned by Lionsgate. Oh crap!
Yeah, I didn't
might as
like
well be.
Yeah, I mean, it was rushed into production to compete before Lionsgate acquired Summit, so.
And I don't know if Maze Runner is owned by Lionsgate.
No, that's being done by Fox.
So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they own both of those.
It's just what worries me, because we've seen a lot of companies try to bring, for some reason, in the recent decade, we've just had a pretty bad track record when it comes to children novel adaptations. I mean, like, people tried How to Eat Fried Worms. It didn't do well. The closest success story we've had would be stuff like Holes and the Wimpy Kid movies, but even then.
What was because I remember this being a kid's book back in my day. It was, I think it's Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible,
Very,
very Bad Day. That's the most recent one that comes to memory.
Yeah, and it did not do well, because from the looks of it, they didn't quite handle. And it's just a worry I have whenever Hollywood wants to adapt a story meant for children, and they try to work in references. They basically try to make the story skew older because they want to try to basically have it appeal to as many people as possible instead of playing to the strength of the story, which is where you get stuff like the Wimpy Kid movies, like Holes, where they play to the story's strengths. But at the same time, it can also backfire, as was the case with the very ill-fated Wayside cartoon. And so that's why I'm worried. Because especially given that they travel through literature and through history, I just worry that they may make the mistake of like trying to shoehorn in references, especially when you consider that, as Alex mentioned, they travel through literature. It's just a worry I have whenever I hear that they're adapting a children's novel. That's just my concern, is that it could very easily get into the hands of the wrong people. And that's why even the author went out of her way. Like, she really dragged her feet for so long on selling the film rights. That's why there was only the Japanese animated film, because that was like the most she would let people back then, because she knows that there's a huge following for these books.
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, I hate to be the Mr. Negative here, but there isn't enough evidence saying that they're going to do a bad job, aside from Lionsgate's kind of record on the matter. I'm just as worried just because any kind of kids' movie property, any movie company tries to take advantage of that, and I'm worried that they're not going to do well with it. I mean, you brought up Narnia, and me and my wife just barely read that it's not Disney, it's somebody else. Somebody else has acquired the rights to Narnia, and they're going to reboot it by doing the next book. So roughly, like, they're going to do the Silver, I think it was the Silver Chair, but they're going to reboot it. They're not going to bring anybody back, including Liam Neeson as Aslan. Nobody's doing anything like that.
Yeah, it's because the rights have been passed. First Disney had it, then Fox had it for Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And
yeah, I can't remember who has it now. But
well, yeah, the thing with Narnia is that it's one of, I mean, for the first while you have, like, Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, stories that have, like, the same cast of characters. But then you get to stuff like A Horse and His Boy or The Magician's Nephew that that have a completely different cast of characters. And so I don't know what comes after Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I don't know if it's either the Silver Chair or...
According to my wife, and my wife is a diehard Narnia fan, she says the Silver Chair is the next one. So technically that would make sense. And if they want to do a straight reboot, I don't think it's entirely out of their purview to do it.
Well, yeah, it is, and I'm just surprised they're going... Well, then again, But again, Silverchair is one of those stories where there aren't a lot of familiar characters from the earlier books that you can really latch on to, so it is very much, okay, you're already starting at a point that most people probably won't even know what's going on, so, couldn't hurt. It's just, yeah, so, to bring it back to the main point we discussed, like, we just know that Lionsgate has the rights. We don't know director, we don't know writer, so it could go either way. I really, really hope they give this to the right people. I mean, I don't know if he'd be on board, but maybe bring in. I mean, Chris Columbus. I mean, despite what people have said about Sorcerer's Stone, Chris Columbus's adaptation was really good. So give it to somebody like Chris Columbus or David Yates, because they obviously know how to play to the story's strengths and actually have something that's meant for kids be entertaining for everybody without shoehorning in crappy references.
I agree, but I don't know if Lionsgate can afford Chris Columbus, if that makes sense, or David Yates.
After
Pixels, Chris Columbus is probably easier to hire.
Was Chris Columbus behind that too?
Oh yeah.
He directed. He didn't write the script, but he directed Pixels. So it's not too far-fetched that they'd be able to get him. David Yates might be tricky.
Okay, yeah, they could probably afford him.
It looks like Osborn's husband is at least writing the first draft of this film.
Okay. So let's go ahead and move on here, because there isn't, like, we've pretty much covered the rest. When we get more information, we will definitely cover more on the Magic Treehouse to see whether or not it's going to be a faithful adaptation. Let's go ahead and get into the next story here, and this is... I hate to end on a low note, but this actually does happen, people, and Alda was actually kind enough to bring this to our attention. I know that it's happened because I've heard of stories here and there. I think even, like, a person that we used to work with over at not Radio SLCC, but for the Globe, Shad, had mentioned, like, a couple of incidences that he'd heard about the matter. But that is that... not directly associated with the story, but this crap happens. So apparently, Anime News Network has been having a little bit of a problem. With a pervy dude basically saying that he is Anime News Network staff, and then he basically contacts cosplayers to say he wants to get pictures and interviews, and then he gets super creepy with him. So... I don't want to go into too many of the details, but this is usually the setup that happens, and I've heard of numerous cases where this has happened to both male and female cosplayers, which is really just seriously, people. So basically the way that these things would start up is that they would contact the cosplayers on DeviantArt or wherever they are with a message like, I was looking at your profile and I wanted to know if you wanted to do a commission for me. I'm looking for someone I could talk to on Skype about anime and cosplay or games and cosplay. And I'm looking to do an article for, in this case it's Anime News Network. I've seen one where somebody actually said that they were part of, I think it was a big one. Polygon, maybe? Something like that. And no, it actually might have been CNET. And so they contact them, and obviously the cosplayer is excited, so they contact them back and say, sure, yeah, I'd love to be able to do the interview. And then when they get on, the conversation takes some turns that it probably shouldn't.
Especially when
it shouldn't.
Yeah, especially when you take into account that some of these cosplayers are under the age of 18, which...
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and on top of that, the other reason that they're going to take this is because usually an amount of money is offered for their contribution. And so at that point, underage cosplayers are like, oh my gosh, this is like the easiest $200 I've ever made. Or the easiest, in this case, the easiest $350 I've ever made. So... I would say it's not that easy because they've worked their butts off on those costumes. But so I'm actually going to show off a conversation that is actually in the Anime News Network story. I hope people don't get mad at me for this, but you could probably see it. So this is how the discussion actually went on Skype. So $350 for the session, okay. Okay, what do you want me to wear? Let's start off with a schoolgirl outfit. Okay. With a short skirt. Okay. Then we can get some panty shots. before you take them off. I'm sorry, that was me hitting my head on the desk.
Yeah, sad part is that that's, well, a sad, frequent reality that a lot of cosplayers
Have
face.
to deal with.
It even links to an article about how there's even credentialed photographers who tend to prey on cosplayers, and
yes,
yeah, it's messed up. That's all I can really say. Now, the reason Anime News Network is reporting on this is because they're trying to point out, saying this person is claiming that they work for our publication. That's not true. And they basically outlined the ways that they will actually contact people when they're doing a story if they're actually staff.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that came out of the Anime News Network story, which a lot of other organizations are trying to point out, is if you're being contacted by, in this case, Anime News Network, you'd be able to see the @Anime News Network email. And if you didn't, all you'd have to do is contact them directly, and I believe they actually put in the editors at Anime News Network email address, and you could just say, look, I don't recognize this name. Do you guys have this person working on your staff? And Anime News Network could just say, nope, we don't have them.
Yeah, and it's kind of a case of, is this person on your staff? Are they on assignment? And is this the subject of the assignment that they're doing?
Yes. So at that point, it's really stupid that we have to go through that whole process now. But yeah, we have to go through this whole process now. Even for cosplayers who are just either trying to get their work shown, well, they have to go through this process because they could easily get taken advantage of. I've actually got the other one that Kotaku actually put up. Let me bring that one up so that we can see the conversation there. So all we're doing is a photo shoot, but we want to capture the best and help you grow as a performer. But yeah, the one thing we're asking for, a selfie photo, nothing on, front, back, and side shot, don't have to show face. So this is basically the article that they're talking about, was that this guy was trying to get nude cosplayers to do nudes.
Yep, and this one actually includes the actual name of the photographer, named Richard T. Bui, who was functioning out of Australia and has since been banned from conventions left and right because, well, he actually is not allowed to leave the country of Australia because of the fact that he was soliciting nudes from a minor.
Yeah, so this is horribly sad that this crap is happening, especially, look, people are not, like, okay, that I had to stop myself because there are cosplayers who are doing this to be able to get things like modeling careers or things like that. There are a few that do it that way. Most are fans, absolute diehard fans of whatever they are cosplaying as, and they work endlessly on these. I actually know of a local cosplayer. He does cosplay, but he's a movie prop guy. And so at that point, his 9 to 5 is creating movie props. So his side time is creating, whatever cosplay he wants to do for a convention.
Yeah, and one thing I also would like to stress is that, yes, we do know there are some cosplayers that do specialize in erotic cosplay. But that's the big difference. The people who do that are going into that sort of thing willingly because that's what they do. Whereas here we have people impersonating staff of anime publications or photographers basically trying to get nudes or erotic photos from people who didn't agree to do that sort of thing in the first place. And that's the real issue here. It's all about choice. It's all about consent. And that is the big thing that we want to stress here. It's not an attack like, oh, because, yeah, we know people do erotic cosplay, and if that's their choice, good on them. Yeah. But the issue here is, it's literally the whole sad story of, the young girl who goes to Hollywood to become a star, taking advantage of. It's the same exact setup, just with a new face. And so, all that can really be said here is, if you're a cosplayer, and if somebody claims to be from a publication and is asking these things of you, first, contact the actual publication.
Well, not just if they're asking for that, just check their credentials.
Yeah, check their credentials, and if they are asking for anything salacious like that,
report it.
I mean, yeah, one, stop talking to them, but if they persist, take note of their name, and please contact the proper authorities. That's even something that Anime News Network advises that if you somehow end up in an awkward situation, before you end that, and I'm reading this verbatim, if you do somehow end up in an awkward situation, hopefully you'll never reach this point, but before you end that Skype call, take a screenshot. Anime News Network will be more than happy to publicly post an image of the person's face. And please remember, it is not your fault. Do not feel embarrassed. Do not feel guilty. Do not feel ashamed of anything that anyone ever does or says in reaction to what's happening. And so it's just very much a case of we all need to work together to be careful and to basically stamp these sort of people out when we spot them.
Yeah. Alex, you've been kind of quiet, so I'm sure you've met plenty of cosplayers. You probably know a few cosplayers.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts on this story? Does this bother you that this is happening?
Yeah, it bothers me because it's like, obviously, this is not only bad for journalists for like Anime News Network who actively want to go seek out cosplayers and talk to them and just take pictures. Yeah. It's bad for just me, the amateur photographer, walking around the convention center, right? That people might have to worry that I'm going to do something illicit with people's cosplay photos, that I might be up to no good. You've got to, be vigilant and be careful and make sure that you don't get yourself into these kinds of situations, and just watch out there, and hopefully creeps like these won't become a huge issue.
Yeah,
I would like to think so. I mean...
Yeah, and one big thing I do want to also mention is that if you have been put in a compromised situation like this, please speak out. Let people know. Don't keep it hidden. We aren't going to judge you. The sooner we know that this has happened, the sooner we can deal with it. The sooner we can...
Clarification. We won't judge you. We'll judge the hell out of the other guy, but we won't judge you.
And that's, I think, another thing that we also need to stress. If this has happened to you, please speak out. Tell people you trust. Tell the proper authorities, because the sooner we get these creeps, on the fire, the better.
Did Romney just advocate a witch hunt?
Podcast?
Burn the rich.
I will neither confirm nor deny.
Crap, I could have gone for Monty Python and I can't remember the lines now. Crap.
Well, yeah, point being, though, to bring it...
She is a witch. She looks like one! I could, but no, I'm not going to.
The thing is, we don't have enough ducks to weigh these people against, though, and some people would probably be obviously a lot heavier than a duck.
So she weighs the same as a duck, and she's made of wood, and therefore... A witch! A witch! A witch! A witch! So...
Yeah, we literally had to actually recreate that scene in my high school, so I have it memorized verbatim.
I didn't have to do that in high school. I just liked Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
That's...
Yeah, don't keep this a secret, people. Don't do it. There's no reason to do that. If a journalist comes to you and says, I want to be able to take pictures of you and in this format or in this way, and yet miraculously you don't see it a month later, maybe it was because this was never meant to come to light. I would actually dare say, if it's not meant to come to light of day on that website or on that particular organization, yeah, just take it with a grain of salt, look up their credentials, report them if you need to. Don't even wait. I agree with Romney. Don't contact them again. But report their butts. Just report them. Because that behavior is unacceptable. And on top of that, we're a podcast that deals mainly in opinions. I have never claimed that we are 100% a journalistic podcast, and I don't think I ever will. But you have to look at this podcast at least from that perspective. When people are doing crap like that, it's hard for cosplayers that we want to bring on the podcast to take us seriously. Because they don't know what they're walking into. And so at that point, it makes our task even harder. And I would love to bring cosplayers on. Because you know what? That's a dedication that I'm a passionate geek. I don't have that kind of passion, mainly because, Alex has seen me make things. It doesn't end well. So
it's the same thing for me. I don't cosplay because I can't sew worth crap.
Yeah, so at that point, I'd love to be able to bring these people on, but when you have jerks like this that are, especially to younger girls, seriously, people, Well, I guess my first inclination there, I also would get on. I don't want to say that, because I'm being the overzealous parent already, but it's like I don't know if I would ever condone my daughter going to a convention in a sexy Pikachu costume. I don't think I would ever condone it. But at the same time, there are girls that are doing it. And yeah, this is just something that happens, and I get that they're doing it that way, but again, the jerk who comes up and says, "Oh, I'd love to be able to do an interview with you. Take your skirt off." That's a problem. A big one. So, and at that point, they are making all other journalists look bad, and I have no problem kicking them in the balls for it. I'm being mean this podcast. I just barely realized this. I'm being kind of mean.
This is a very violent podcast.
Yeah, well, we're gonna need to factor in the budget to get lawyers to deal with the eventual assault charges. I mean, we may have to take some money away from the Prozac budget because lawyers aren't cheap. And although I know about law, I can't legally practice law, so I'm no good on that front. So don't
dang it, Romney! What are you good for then?
I'm a legal analyst. I'm not actually a lawyer.
Okay, all right.
Senior legal analyst.
You're the equivalent of a Fox News or MSNBC contributor, is what you're saying.
Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Don't go into the political thing, people. Just don't do it. I will ignore those emails. So yeah, that's pretty much the stories that we have to cover, and we actually ended on time tonight.
Well, I'll have you know, we're exactly 3 minutes over.
Yeah, the hipster's back. And he's not even wearing plaid, people. He's back, and he's not even wearing plaid.
Nope, I'm wearing my red hoodie.
So, yeah, so let's go ahead and wrap things up for the evening, because... well, I know that a lot of us are just going to get tired, and frankly, some of us are sick, and I want to get them back to bed. So in the meantime, for people might have noticed we didn't have Aldo tonight. Unfortunately, Aldo was sick with the exact same thing, I think, that Alex had, but he was detracted from that. Like, he also had something else going on tonight where he likes to do improv, but I don't even think he went, because I think he was stuck in bed. So if people want to get a hold of him and give him crap about why he wasn't on the podcast tonight, because, man, he would have had a lot of great zingers to contribute, you guys can contact him at his Twitter at Allo531. Actually, no, he changed his Twitter, didn't he?
Board Thresh.
Board Thresh. At Board Thresh. And you guys can contact him and go, what the heck, Aldo? You missed out on, like, some really great material. And yet... when he comes back next week, he'll probably just bring it again. So we're not too disappointed by that. And you can also check out all the other material that he does for Reviews versus the World. He also does stuff on his own channel, which is Board Offline. And those are the places that you can contact Aldo. Alex, when you're not dying in your bed, how can people contact you to give you a copy of the official X-Files coloring book?
Yes, please send me an official copy. You can find me on YouTube.com. ShadowBlazer3000, of course, is my name. You can find me on Twitter at AlexJShort, and of course, you can find me on Facebook, Alex Short, as always. And yeah, that's about it, really.
And I'm just going to point this out. If you send him a copy of the official X-Files coloring book, I'm not saying you should, but if you do, demand a review. I want to see him pull that out of his butt. I really do. In fact, I'm going to put a comment on his most recent video to do it. If he gets the official X-Files coloring book, he has to review it. So, with that, Romney, how do people get a hold of your wonderful channel?
Well, you can always find me here on YouTube at youtube.com. Let's try that again. You can always find me here on YouTube at youtube.com/StudioPhantasma. That is Phantasma with an F. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Romney'sReviews. No apostrophe. I am also on Twitter at RomneyReviews. And for this week's iteration of Romney's Reading Club, I am recommending I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. You've seen the Will Smith movie. Check out the original book. It's based on that inspired writers like Stephen King, Ray Bradbury. I mean, there's been like 3 different films inspired by it alone. And see how Hollywood misunderstands the point. Yeah, misunderstands, that's a word. Misunderstands the point of a story when adapting it into a Will Smith movie.
Yeah, fun fact, I actually have like one of the I don't know if it's like one of the first generation copies of I Am Legend, but it was actually one of the books that my dad used to own. So we got it, and I swear I'm going to read it one of these days for no other reason than I will admit I've wanted to see the Omega Man, because I have seen other Charlton Heston movies, and man, do they go really funny after a while. So I know that I Am Legend is on my book list, and I'm sure you guys can get it on Audible and whatnot. I recommend that book wholeheartedly. I do not recommend the film because it's way different. So
right, especially when they change the ending, when the original ending actually makes a lot more sense. But like, no, we need to have Will Smith go out like a badass, so we'll just have him blow people up instead of tying into the actual theme of the story you established. I mean, just yeah. Once I finish this, I'm gonna have to do a whole book versus movie thing.
Yes, you are, and I'm putting that in as my other suggestion, because I did put in a bunch of other suggestions. He actually has a video up, people. If you want to see some additional things come out from him, he actually says leave a comment below and suggest some things. And I actually wholeheartedly ask you guys to take advantage of it, because there are a couple of things that Romney has done that need to come back. Starblazer Flux! That I personally want to see. So with that, if people want to get a hold of me directly, there are two ways to do it. One is the YouTube channel, which is where you're at, youtube.com/Drac2326. That is where Geek News is hosted. That is where you can watch all of the various other episodes that we've done. You can probably even, I'm sure we've got one of the episodes where we talked about The Rock becoming a boulder. I'm sure it's there. You can also go to the one where we were talking about Michael Bay and the power went out. I'm not even going to go into that. I really am not. But yeah, pretty much all the episodes are there. I think it's missing just a few that we had some issues with recording from Radio SLCC. And then also you can look up all the various other content that I'm doing on my channel. I do Let's Plays, I do live streams, I do this podcast, obviously. And in fact, I'm also doing game reviews, and I actually have 2 reviews coming out in the next couple of days. So you guys can look forward to that. If you guys want to get a hold of the show directly and leave suggestions for stories, leave your opinions, leave possible speculation stories that we can put up on social media and get your feedback on, because we like getting you guys' feedback, there are 3 ways to do it. One is geekyweek@gmail.com. That is the best place to leave the stories. That's our direct email. And like I said, we had a couple of listener suggestions tonight from that address, so it works. Feel free to use it. If for no other reason, then we need to find some other obscure stuff that Alex would appreciate that is now in coloring book form. Second is our Twitter, which is @GeekyNRO. And I love getting feedback suggestions for stories and also for just opinions that you might have on the stories. I like to be able to read them not only on that Twitter but also on my own personal Twitter, because whether you like me or you hate me, some of that stuff is just hilarious. And then the third way is on Facebook. You can go to Geek News Reviews and Opinions and like it and get up-to-the-minute information when we're going live, when we're doing specific events like Gaming with the Geeks or a group review and we're not going to be live, things like that. So plenty of ways to get a hold of us, and we do like your feedback, especially on the stories, because some of this stuff is just plain silly. Especially in these months, people. I actually did get a commenter coming out and say, why aren't you guys doing like legitimate news? It's January, people. There is no legitimate news going on right now. Aside from game reviews or movie reviews, there really isn't anything because nobody's willing to talk.
Well, yeah, and it's also a case, no, we're never going to do any celebrity stuff, because I've had some people in person ask if we'd ever cover that, but we're not tabloids. We don't do any tabloid stuff, so
like
don't
what
ask
kind
us.
of celebrity stuff?
Well, like back when, say, like, well, let's say, for example, say Kim Kardashian and Kanye West have another baby.
That's not going to happen. That's not. We're not a tabloid people. I will cover like if Kim Kardashian gets a geeky casting, then sure, I'll cover that. But well, the likelihood of that happening is astronomical. Kind of like me caring about Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, well, we'll have to keep our eye on the thermometer for hell. See if the temperature started to drop.
Nope, still up there. We're in the clear. It's okay, Romney. You can calm down. Second opinion? Nope, still good. All right. So let's go ahead and wrap things up because it's obviously getting late for people. So we will be back next week. with more stories, and hopefully we will be able to get Aldo back. But in the meantime, for me, for Alex, and for Romney, we will see you again for more geek news, reviews, and opinions. Because we're an opinionated bunch. And if you have a problem with me calling the rock a boulder, well, then this is my response to you.